welcome to TYT Sports RotoWire. I'm Heather Ankeny alongside Chris Liss, Ben Mankiewicz. We are heading into week 10 of the NFL. And
the last buys, right?
Yeah, and there's another, there's
10,
6
11,
more
12.
this week.
Oh, there is this year. It used to
This
end in
is-
10. Now it goes through 12?
Yeah, and this is the last 6.
The last six
six.
team,
Oh.
yeah, because then it's just 2 and 2.
Is
And
it
it's
two-
just the London
is it
teams.
4 and 2 or 2 and 2?
Oh, is it 4 and 2? I thought it was 2
don't
and
know.
2.
I would have to count them up. But anyway,
I think the London
This
teams.
is the last big
really
buy.
bad one with a lot of good teams off.
Yeah, this is a brutal week. So let's work the wire, yeah? Who do you got?
All right, and I actually forgot to check who was on bye. So if these guys are on bye, it's still okay. I mean, these are guys you want for down the stretch.
Chris, I
don't-
got it for you right
Colts
here if
are
you
on
need.
bye.
Week 10 bye is the Texans, the Colts, Vikings, Patriots, Chargers, and Redskins. Pigskins, whatever.
Okay,
Jeez.
I don't really have too many of the Bullets or any of those other guys. All right, so
The Pigskins.
on this list. So here are the guys I would pick up. There could be on your wire. Percy Harvin, they got him involved. He's obviously a super talent, and I do like that Michael Vick, Decker, and Harvin. Just get them the ball. That's what you do, right? You
Yeah, all of a sudden, Vic and Harvin and Decker, that seems like those are NFL quality players on the Jets.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
and the D doesn't stop people in the passing game, so they're going to have to throw. And I just think that's good, okay? Mark Sanchez, say what you want about him. It may be the case that Nick Foles is a mediocre quarterback who had 27 touchdowns in 10 starts last year. And if that's the case, then Mark Sanchez may be able to get in 5 starts or 6 starts, 10 or 12. And he also runs well, and that's part of the Chip Kelly offense also. Foles had 2 touchdowns and 200-something yards last year. Sanchez could do better than that.
I'm, we did in our Beating the Book segment, I'm taking Carolina because I'm betting against Mark Sanchez. That said, I wouldn't hesitate. I acknowledge fully that I might be wrong, and that's a team that moves the ball, and they have a lot of weapons. And Mark Sanchez could play poorly, as Foles has done a couple of times. You can play poorly and throw for 3 touchdowns on that team.
Right.
Especially with all these teams on buys, you're more than likely, most of these quarterbacks are probably in your starting lineup, with the exception of Ryan Fitzpatrick, who might not even play this week.
Fitzpatrick,
Ryan Mallett. Are you picking up Ryan Mallett?
In a 2-quarterback league.
Yeah.
Probably not in a 1-quarterback league, although he does have some good weapons. But anyway, so Sanchez I'm doing. Okay.
That's crazy.
Ryan Tannehill also. I would pick him up. He may not be available, but he might. He's running for 30, 40 yards at a minimum. We talked about him last week. Looks good through 3 touchdowns. This will be a tough matchup, but I would still pick up Tannehill. RG3, right? You got to pick him up now. He's probably owned,
He looked good.
but in 1 QB leagues, he looked healthy.
He kind of did.
Looked
I was
healthy. I mean, he took a
shocked.
couple of hits that looked like, one in particular that looked like a season-ending knee injury, and he was back up. That said, they got to protect him better. I mean, they got to protect him better, and he needs to make decisions quicker to get rid of the ball. He needs to protect himself better too.
All right, so those are the QBs. A couple other players I want to throw out there. Marcus Wheaton, this attack on the Steelers just looks crisp. There's 3 guys they throw it to. Obviously, Antonio Brown is the clear number 1, but in a PPR league, Wheaton is going to get 5-6 catches often, 50, 60, 70 yards, occasional touchdown. I think he's worth looking, especially during the bye weeks.
I mean, is this who the Steelers are now?
Yes, this is who the Steelers are now, and it's important not to think of them as the Steelers you think they are just because they're the Steelers. Real quick, one reason why I'm so jealous of Steeler fans, I wish I were one. It's such a great team to root for. They run the organization the right way. They never make a mistake. I see them as the Oakland A's of
Their quarterback rapes people.
of football. Just in terms of they got a plan.
Except for that.
I don't even think that's fair to say.
Yeah.
He might, but it's really not fair to say. I mean, I've said
Allegedly.
it too. Yeah.
Allegedly.
Never even charged. Worth noting. But they do things right from a football point of view. I love the coach. I love the organization. And look what they did. They would have had to pay Emmanuel Sanders is a grade A NFL talent. And they made the right decision to let him go because that's not where they needed their money spent because they knew this. They knew they'd have they had the players and they'd get the players cheaper and it would still work. And so they spent their money elsewhere and smartly, and they always do.
Yeah, I also like that Martavis Bryant's a big, fast guy to go with Antonio Brown, not 2 clones with Brown and Wheaton. And now you've got a 3rd guy in Wheaton, and then, with Le'Veon Bell being such a good receiver, it is a very nice system.
But Marcus Wheaton, who really didn't look that great up until these last 2 6-touchdown games.
As the 2, but as a 3, he's a nice 3rd option with the.
Yeah, he's getting better. He's a kid.
Right, he's a 2nd-year guy. All right, a couple other guys. Terrence West looks like he may be the starter there. They're getting soured on Ben Tate. I know they haven't run well since Alex Mack went down, but they will adapt and get better at that. Just
very quick on that. Yes, I agree, except that when the drives did matter, when they were trying to run out the clock, Ben Tate was the running back that was back in the game. So it's worth a flyer. He may turn into the better player. You don't know. Don't. The flip side is if I had Ben Tate, don't
No,
give
drop
up.
him for
Right.
Wes.
Yes. Damian Williams, the Dolphins' third back. I know what's his name is there. Who's the backup again? Daniel Thomas, but he's been such a
yes.
mediocre guy.
He has a track record of mediocrity.
Right. And then Lamar Miller's a little dinged up. He may be fine, he may not, but just pick up the guy in advance. This is when you pick them up before it happens. Alfred Blue is an obvious one with
Foster.
getting an MRI and throwing his helmet down angrily. Obviously, he's probably going to miss at least a game. I know they have a bye this week, but even he may miss a game even though they have a bye. May miss more than that.
Yeah,
So.
you don't know. With the groins and hamstrings, you don't know. They could miss 4 games.
Right.
Just let me follow that one up. I'm really just going to piggyback off you. But Jonathan Grimes is the back behind Blue. Like, if you've got a roster spot, I think the way you win these things is you grab guys. You grab the third Texans running back on the bye. And if he turns into the starter, and it's the Texans, and we all know the starter there, you can get 100 yards and a touchdown on a weekly basis.
And Grimes was decent at the very end of last year.
That's right, yeah.
Alan Hearns, he dropped a bunch of balls, but he's just made big plays a lot this year and looks like one of these Victor Cruz out of nowhere. Who is this guy? But when the ball's up in the air, he goes out and gets it. And they have a lot of weapons there, but they're still developing what they're doing with the passing attack. Hearns could end up being their number one.
He could, and he scored 2 more touchdowns, right?
Yep.
And on both of them, they were both touchdowns. Both of them were underthrown balls that he came back for, and he made the play on. He deserves credit.
Okay, a couple other guys quickly. Jarvis Landry in Miami's getting more involved. He looks good. Obviously,
People miss him. They miss him all the time.
he was a second-round pick, right? And he's one of these receivers in this deep class that's really done well. Charles Clay is now back involved. He was a top 10 tight end, and then he kind of got dropped by a lot of people because he was playing hurt, wasn't very good. Looks like he's now integrated, scored a couple touchdowns the last few weeks.
And threw to him a bunch. Like he seemed like he could have caught and didn't, but I mean, Tannehill's looking for him.
Yeah.
How about Chase Ford, tight end in Minnesota?
I did not have him on my list. I just think that team's passing game is so sketchy, and they've got so many sort of weapons that who knows who's going to get the targets or get it them accurately thrown, that I don't really have any Minnesota people on this list.
Except Adrian Peterson.
Yeah, except Peterson, because obviously the small chance that he comes back to pay out so big. Michael Rivera on the Raiders got a lot of targets, got a touchdown or two, and I think they're still figuring it out. But in the red zone, he may get some looks. Chris Polk on the Eagles, I think, is a guy that you got a touchdown, but don't worry about that. It's more that you got McCoy, and if McCoy were to get hurt, I don't think Sproles is going to get 15, 20 carries. Polk, I think, would be the guy. Again, what you were saying about Jonathan Grimes, get this guy now.
Yeah, I agree.
And figure it out later. Kenny Britt, he's probably the number one receiver now that Brian Quick's out for the year. Size, speed, pedigree, first-round pick.
And an improving quarterback, getting better with the reps. I'll just throw in, because you mentioned Chase Ford in Minnesota. Like, if you're in a PPR league, Greg Jennings, because Teddy Bridgewater, is going to be a guy who throws a lot of, I think they're going to complete a lot of passes, maybe not for a ton of yards. His yards per attempt is probably going to be lower. But he's looking better. He looks like he can play in the NFL, and Greg Jennings is he's probably owned, I think, in something like half the leagues, but I wouldn't hesitate to start him, especially this week in a PPR league. I think he'll have some games with Bridgewater where he catches 7 or 8 balls for 60, 70 yards.
Right, and I'll throw in 2 Tampa Bay Bucks, Bobby Rainey, who with Doug Martin banged up and also not good, who actually looks good. Every time I watch Rainey, I'm like, this guy's good.
What did you think of running back in the NFL named Doug Martin? Of course he's terrible.
Yeah, well, it's a bad name for a running back, obviously. And then Charles Sims, he's getting activated this week probably.
I picked him up.
And he is supposedly like one of the best pass catching backs to come out of college the last couple of years. And I think in a PPR, you should have Charles Sims. I don't know if you can start him this week, but you should be ready to, actually against Atlanta, maybe you would start him this week.
Well, I had that IR spot, so I picked him up and stuck him in my...
Very smart.
No,
right?
shrewd.
Shrewd. We'll see.